So welcome to week number 8 of our class on leadership. We are approaching the end this week. The next week, I will provide the summary, and then you have the final, and then this class is over, like many others before this one. So today, we only cover 2 chapters, the last 2 chapters of your book. Chapter 15 and chapter 16. Chapter 15 is the chapter is called The Dark Side of Leadership. Basically, it's true. Some leaders are not good. Some leaders use their position for their own use. And so basically, this is the chapter that wants to warning is a kind of warning that leadership is not only always right. And chapter 16 is a kind of summary of some of the discussion and topics has been addressed originally. And it's called the skills for optimizing leadership as situations change. So basically, the situation may change, and so also leadership might change. What skills are necessary to allow the leadership to change according to the change of the situation. So this is basically the topics, the topics of today. So let's start with the dark side of leadership. So your book starts with an evidence that history provides example of people that have been bad leaders, and you don't need to go into great important people, but of course there are people who were instrumental in genocides, leaders that were instrumental to wars. So this is a point easily won for your book. Then the book passed to another topic, another element of bad leadership, which is managerial incompetence. Well, managerial incompetence is clear. Is your book says that maybe 50–75% of the people, the managers, are incompetent, and I believe that. So we are used to study the base cases. We are used to look at the base cases of leadership. But of course, we have to remember that there are also large group of managers that are incompetent. And they are incompetent because, well, first of all, they don't produce results. Or they are incompetent because they are unable to build organizations. And so imagine that there is a manager that is able to build groups, organizations, but is also good in building, receiving, and reaching results. That is good. This is the definition of managerial competence. And then they start saying, hey, somebody is very good in building your organization, but is unable to deliver results. Or maybe he doesn't even, or the opposite. He can deliver results, but is destroying organizations. And then, of course, there are people who are not only unable to get results, but also unable to build the organization. So if you notice, there are many more possibilities that the manager is incompetent rather than he or she is competent. Another case addressed by your book is managerial derailment. So derailment means when things seems to go right, and then there is a shift. There is something that happens, and for example, high potential managers are able to deliver results for a while, and then for some reason they lose this ability. Of course, they lose the ability because they don't stay focused, because at the beginning they were just lucky, or they were leverage a situation, a positive situation, because the situation itself changes, and so the leader is unable to adapt to the new situation, because the leader was very good in with some people, but is not good with other people, because the situation of the organization changes, and the leader is unable to provide a new strategy. So basically, there are many reasons why suddenly the leadership can derive, so basically can move from good to bad. And also in this case, we have a great example of managers, also famous managers, that at the beginning are very good. They receive the results, they change the organization, and then somehow they lose the touch, and suddenly people start questioning the ability of these leaders. So this basically another reason. Your book comes with the 6 sources or root causes of managerial failure. So, and there is a long list. So I try to just provide you some of them. For example, one I like it is that after a while, some kind of dark side personality traits of the person comes out. At the beginning, the person was very gentle, and then it becomes authoritarian, because the person is so used to being in command that unleashed basically his or her real personality. Or because they lack self-awareness, so basically are unable to judge themselves, and so they don't understand what they are doing right or wrong. They always think that they're doing right, to the point that it becomes basically the leader is not learning, and so it becomes a replication of himself or herself all the time. Or maybe at the beginning, the leader had the technical and competence to address a company, but then eventually the company grows up, and this ability run out, and so the leader is unable to manage anymore a larger company. But it can also happen that it's not just the leader, it's the situation that has changed, and the leader is unable to react. For example, there are new competitors, and the leader is unable to develop the know-how to understand the new situation. Or maybe in the organization, there are people that start criticizing the leader, and the leader is unable to deal with this criticism and criticizers. And so, as you notice, there are the leadership is always a leadership in the move, because the followers changes, and the situation changes, and everybody change, and so also the leadership must change. But changing is difficult. That's why your book says, well, they're not just cases of managerial incompetence, but there are cases of managerial derailment. So inability to remain a leader. That is basically what it means. To the list of reasons or roots of managerial derailment, I want to add one that is not included in your book, but I think is interesting to discuss, which is success. So leaders with a long track record of success are more vulnerable to failure than others that have already experienced failure. And the reason is very simple, because if you have a long track records of success, you start feeling thinking of yourself as invincible. And for this, you are more open and vulnerable to make mistakes. This is a story that has been proved over and over in history, and also in the small, narrowed history of management. So chapter 16 is the last chapter, and is basically a series of advices or suggestions to advance leadership in the case in which the situation is changing. So basically, we just said the situation changes and the leader needs to change. So how is possible? What are the skills that are useful for the leader to deal with this ever-changing situation, or to the situation of challenges that we have? And your book comes with 6 suggestions. The first is to create a compelling vision. Compelling vision means a vision that can be reached. A vision, we already discussed that, is a picture, basically is a picture of the future. And being a picture of the future is like a projection of ourselves and the company and the organization and the business and so on in the future. Of course, nobody can predict the future. In fact, to have a vision is to build a future. So basically is to give the idea, not only to yourself, but also to the people who are following you, that you know where you're going, and there is a clear path in front of all. The second advice is about managing conflicts. So basically, it's the idea that well, there are always conflict in an organization for an infinite of reasons, and of course, not all the time conflicts are bad, because sometimes from out of conflicts can come new ideas, creativity, and so on. Anyway, the conflict, however, needs to be solved. And there are several, let's call it, techniques or strategies to solve problems, conflict. So, for example, to negotiate, to sharing, to offer collaboration, and so on. So, but the point is, conflict might be positive. For example, because events allowed people to vent, so to bring outside whatever they have in their mind. They stimulate critical thinking and so on. Of course, it's also conflict can also be bad, of course. But at the end of the day, conflict must be solved. And this is the reason why your book comes with these say techniques, like, for example, the compromise, accommodating. So there are 5 or 6 different strategies to solve problems. Another another skill that allowed to increase leadership efficiency in situation of change is negotiation. So the ability to basically separate the people from the problem and step by step finding a solution that bring peace between the people. Another skills is the ability to identify problems of performance in the organization. Of course, the organization is made by individuals, groups, teams, and so on. So for each of them, if there is a problem, the ability to identify the problem is important. And I think it's something I already said. If a leader is somebody who is able to identify the right, because when the right problem is identified, the solution comes quite easily. But the problem is when the leader identified the wrong problem, because it causes even more problems to the organization. Another skills suggested by your book, of course, is to build an executive team of efficient. That means not just the organization must be efficient, not just the teams inside the organization, but really the executive team, the team that is working closely to the CEO, who is supposed to be the leader of the company. And to these skills, your book also adds punishment. A punishment in terms of means that can be used to basically motivate people or change the behavior of people and to align this behavior to whatever is necessary in the company. So this is the chapter 16. To be honest, is not the best chapter of your book because it seems that everything that has not been said till now has been somehow merged in this chapter 16. Chapter 15 is a little bit more interesting because, of course, it talks about the dark side of leadership, the fact that leaders can be bad, or people who are in position of leadership can be non-leaders, or even better, the leaders can become not leaders. So all this is in chapter 15, which is, I think, more interesting than chapter 16, which is a bunch of recommendations. So that is it. So next week, I will provide you a summary of these 16 chapters so that you have in mind everything clear before the next week, which is the week of the final, where basically you are supposed to bring all the knowledge of this class and take the test. All right. Thank you.